Last month I had promised to review The Polar Express for December 9th, but given the fact that I hadn't uploaded a Christmas special in a few years, today felt appropriate. The Polar Express is a motion-captured film that was directed by Robert Mckess, who directed Monster House and the Back to the Future trilogy. It was released in 2004 and was based off of a real children's book by author Chris Van Allsburg, with the screenplay being written by William Broyles. This movie, despite having a few questionable things, is one of my favorite Christmas movies ever, being tied with A Charlie Brown Christmas and The Grinch. Not that one. No, not that one either. Ah, that's better. So without further ado, let's dive into this movie and talk about its pros and cons. Is it an underrated masterpiece, or a possible train wreck? Let's find out. The movie starts off in the bedroom of an unknown child who is called Hero Boy in the credits. So to prevent complications, I'll name him Charlie. Charlie, who is played by Tom Hanks and Josh Hutcherson and voiced by Daryl Sabara, is facing a terrible trauma that every person faces in their life, having doubts if Santa Claus is real. It's so serious that he's spreading his doubts to his sister Sarah, who is played by Leslie Zemeckis and is voiced by Isabella Perturina. It's late at night on Christmas Eve, and the house starts shaking. Charlie puts on his robes and goes outside to find a massive, legit steam locomotive with 5 passenger cars in front of his house. Charlie meets the conductor, who is voiced and played by Tom Hanks, the same voice actor for Woody in the Toy Story franchise. Surprisingly, Charlie sees his name on the list and is invited to ride the Polar Express to the North Pole. After being a little hesitant, he changes his mind and climbs on board. Charlie then receives a golden ticket to Santa Claus's toy factory, which so far has only 2 letters. Inside the passenger train, he finds several other first-years who are off to Hogwarts, one of which is a know-it-all kid who is played by Eddie Zizan and is voiced by Jax Pinchaks. I did some researching, and what the know-it-all kid says, who I'll call Colin, is actually false. He says that the train is a Baldwin 284 S3 class merchandise steam locomotive built in 1931 by the Baldwin Locomotive Works. First off, he messed up on the date by 10 years. He says it was built in 1931, when it was actually built in 1941, and the workshop it was made in wasn't the Baldwin Locomotive Works, but the Lima Locomotive Works. Sitting beside Charlie and Colin is a hero girl who I'll name Alicia. She's played by Chantal Valdiviso and is voiced by Nona Gay. Their next and final stop is 113th 44 Edbrook Avenue. For those who don't know, this address is actually the childhood home of the director, Robert Zemeckis. Billy, who is played by Hayden McFarland and is voiced by Jimmy Bennett and Peter Scolari, is hesitant to get on the train, but just like Charlie, Billy changes his mind, however fails to get on as they leave without him. Charlie pulls the emergency brakes and Billy gets on, but sits in a different car. After explaining what happened to a pissed-off conductor, the conductor decides to let it go, and they all treat themselves with hot chocolate. Although you'd think that as an adult I'd find this cringy, I actually find this entertaining. I like how the seats and tables turned into a dinette, and the waiter's song numbers was pretty cool. Noticing that Billy didn't get any hot chocolate, Alicia and the conductor decide to go over to the next passenger car and bring him some. But suddenly, and by suddenly I mean that it wasn't there before, Charlie notices that Alicia left her ticket. He takes it and runs off to bring it to her. Okay, pause for a minute. Let's process this. Girl leaves her Willy Wonka ticket, and the best thing to do is to bring it to her in a different passenger car. None of the windows are open, so it can't be blown around. What the hero boy, Charlie, should have done was to hold on and protect it and wait for them to come back. All they're doing is delivering hot chocolate, so they'll more than likely be back around a little under 5 minutes. The ticket would have definitely been safer in the car. However, I have a theory about that, which we'll get to later on. Unnerved by this completely dangerous coupling, the ticket slips out of his hand and gets blown away by the wind. It then flies down a ravine, captured by a bald eagle, spat out by an eaglet, stuck in a snowball, hit by the train, and flies straight in the car it originated from.
It's completely mental. Isn't it?
After learning that she didn't have her invitation to the Squid Games, the conductor decides to throw her off. This is a little girl. You're just going to dump her out in the cold Canadian snow in her pajamas? Seriously? You know it wasn't her fault. Charlie even confessed that he lost it. To his surprise, and without questioning, Charlie finds the ticket stuck to the air vent. He hops into the neighboring passenger car and can't find them anywhere, not even the conductor, but it soon turns out that they're on the roof. Wait, what? So your plan is to just yeet the girl off the train, but instead you thought it'd be fun to go train skiing in freezing conditions? On a moving train? Charlie climbs up after them, but instead meets a hobo, or Scrooge. He's played and voiced by Tom Hanks and starts going insane from his sock soup, taunting Charlie's problems. However, he decides to help him and they end up train skiing. As he gets to the tender, the hobo vanishes in a cloud of frost and Charlie ends up in the cab of the locomotive. Inside driving the train is...
Wait, what?
So you were going to throw her off, but then decided to go onto the roof and then leave her to drive the train because the driver and fireman are replacing a light bulb? What? And where the hell is the conductor at? Wait, calm down. Save this theory for later. After Smokey and Steamer, who are both voiced by Andres Soglizio and played by Michael Jeter, fix the light bulb, they find Caribou up ahead blocking the tracks. With my least favorite scene and a lot of beard tugging that looks so painful, unnecessary story and time-wise, the tracks are cleared and they continue the journey. And then there was trouble. The locomotive's throttle gets busted, preventing them from using the brakes. But really, that's not my main concern. Because the conductor and the two children are still at the front of the train. Was the conductor so sensitive on arriving on time that he figured it'd be faster to climb on the side? This is not much of a walking distance. But here's something interesting. If you look in the background as they're scrambling to catch the throttle's pin, you can see a working flux capacitor. Is that how this train is so magical? Is that why they could travel across North America to the North Pole in less than 6 hours? Without the ability to stop, they start going light McQueen, nearly hit Todd from The Fox and the Hound, go on a roller coaster ride on these strong-ass tracks, and get derailed on a frozen lake. But good news though, they used a hairpin to replace the throttle's pin. So a steam locomotive that weighs over 800,000 pounds can't break the ice, but this small pin can? The ice begins to crack, and with some guidance and directions from the conductor, they manage to get the train back onto the tracks, as well as 5 coaches. Luckily, no one was hurt. What the hell is wrong with this train? It's bending like a frickin' snake. After passing through Borgen and Burke's and this cute song number, they then arrive at what has to be my favorite interpretation of the North Pole. It looks like a city in a tiny village, and to top it off, they even have a statue of Rudolph as a dedication. How cool is that, honestly? Though I have suspicion that the city might be filled with radiation, because this one elf isn't moving his limbs, yet he's still marching with the others. Before the train stops, the conductor explains that Santa Claus would pick one of the children to receive the first gift of Christmas. The train comes to a stop and everyone but Billy gets out of the train. As Charlie and Alicia try to convince him, the conductor goes insane and tries to get the 3 killed. But fortunately, after some quick thinking, Charlie pulls the emergency brakes and they come to a stop, lost beyond anything they could imagine. However, Alicia and Billy can hear sleigh bells and use this to try and find their way back. The only problem is that they are heading in the wrong direction. The 3 enter a building which turns out to be where they make the naughty and nice list. The 3 climb into a travel tube and end up in a wrapping room. Suddenly, a present comes down the conveyor belt and is tagged with Billy's name and address. Shocked that he was actually getting something for Christmas, Billy races after his present. The 3 get onto a slip and slide and fall straight into Santa's toy bag, which already has Colin inside and is being carried by a blimp. Seriously, this version of the North Pole has a frickin' blimp. Yeah, that's definitely Legos. They set the bag onto Santa's sleigh and the kids get caught, but thankfully no one is in trouble. Everyone from the train, as well as the elves, gather around the center of the city. The reindeer and the sleigh bells are getting prepared, and yet Charlie can't hear it unlike everyone else. Santa Claus then comes out of the restroom and everyone cheers, but unfortunately Charlie can't see him. One of the silver sleigh bells then falls off and rolls straight at Charlie's feet. After being convinced from the train to how the North Pole works, he finally believes. And to his astonishment, he can hear the bell. Santa Claus, who is voiced and played by Tom Hanks, overhears what he said and chooses him to receive the first gift of Christmas. So instead of asking for a cure for cancer or a step-by-step tutorial to bring world peace, Charlie asks for the same sleigh bell. If you listen closely, you can hear him ask for it. Charlie is given the sleigh bell and Santa flies off to deliver presents as the elves party with music. Guitars aren't even plugged in. As everyone gets onto the train, each of the children's tickets are punched in to form a word. Alicia's is lead, Billy's is about friendship, and Colin's is learn.
It's
to know.
Once inside the passenger car, Charlie reaches in his pocket for the bell, but unfortunately there's a tear in his pocket and the bell is gone. And before they can find it, the train starts moving. Oh well, maybe next year. All the children are taken home and Billy finds his present waiting for him at home. Charlie enters his house and the train leaves, so does the hobo who gets Thanos. It's the next morning and Charlie and his sister Sarah are opening presents. But there is one more of Charlie's that Sarah finds. Inside is the sleigh bell that Charlie lost, which had fallen to Santa's sleigh. We even get this interesting scene where the parents can't hear the bell.
Santa? Really? Oh, that's too bad.
What's this? Huh? Broken. Huh. Sorry about that, sport.
Man, why does every cartoon dad have to call their son a damn sport? As the narration goes on, if you look closely at the bell, you can see Santa's reflection. It took me all these years to finally notice it. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was the Polar Express. So let's talk about the movie. It has a few problems and questions, but compared to Monster House, which was directed by Mckess as well, it's not anything extremely severe. As I said before, the beard-tugging scene wasn't necessary and we've wasted about a minute and a half for this shenanigan. At least the roller coaster and frozen lake scene made up for it. The most questionable things that I've wondered as a child and adult are two things. First is that no one else feels the shaking in their homes or hears a train whistle. And second, the conductor and hero girl go from the passenger car to the roof and to the train, leaving her to drive it. It makes no sense, but if you hear my two theories, you might have a different perspective to them afterwards, and maybe the entire movie as well. The reason why nobody's rooms are shaking and why they can't hear the whistle from outside is probably because of the list, which names every child they're picking up. Whoever's name is written on this list could be able to hear, smell, see, and touch the train. Example, if Sarah's name was on the clipboard, she'd wake up from the locomotive as well as her brother. This is the most simple answer that I could think of, except the main character dreaming everything. But if that was the case, then that wouldn't explain the bell towards the end, and the note written by Santa himself. The second theory involving the hero girl is that every event, whether good or bad, was planned from the beginning by either Santa Claus or the conductor. All the children's behavior and choices causes a chain reaction that would make everyone learn their specific lessons in the end. Whoever planned these events knew that Billy would want to get on at the last minute, which would cause Charlie to act as a hero and believe. This action would show Billy the possibility of friendship and that there's people out there who care about him, as well as slowly teaching Colin not to be a snitch and a know-it-all. Whether Alicia has the ticket safe or not, it would be left out in the open for Charlie to find and make him try to act as a hero again. And after Alicia becomes a damsel in distress and Charlie finds the ticket after losing it, it would further encourage him to act as a hero and believe in the impossible, with the hobo being a reminder of why he's on the train in the first place. But instead of being thrown off the train, the locomotive's light goes out, making the driver and fireman have to fix it, and being an excuse for Alicia to face her problem, which is to trust her gut and lead. As I said, this was all planned from the beginning, and to add to this theory, Charlie, Alicia, and Billy are stuck together and lost. This alone causes a positivity that they aren't aware about. Alicia is put on the spot as a leader, Billy faces the power of friendship, and to not give up hope, which is seen with his present, and Charlie's taken around the North Pole, seeing everything he had thought to be impossible. After being found, Charlie faces the fact that Santa Claus is real and starts believing again, and Colin learns to shut the hell up. What the other children's problems is unknown, but what had happened on the journey or at the North Pole, whether caused by one of the passengers or not, might have benefited them in some way. So with the theories and dislikes out of the way, let's talk about the positives. I frickin' love this movie. The general idea that a magic train takes children with problems to the source of the happiest season of the year is brilliant. None of the characters are annoying or unlikable except for Smoker and Steamer, who feels like those kind of bumbling, idiotic side characters in a Barbie movie. But whatever, it's a children's movie, I'll let it pass. They could have easily made the hobo a villain, but obviously they didn't, which makes me very proud of the story writers. When you first meet him, you get that immediate assumption that he would be one, but he's instead a negative reflection of Charlie, and even helps him twice throughout the movie. As for the songs, they're not the best, but I'd keep them. The song played at the Elves' Party is jazzy yet forgettable. Christmas Comes to Town is charming, but it definitely feels out of place when Billy and Alicia break out into song. The Hot Chocolate song was entertaining, and the Polar Express song isn't much, but it just sounds fun, and I'm not sure why it isn't being played on the radio. I'm tired of hearing Rudolph and Frosty, just please spice your soundtrack up! So that was my thoughts on the Polar Express. It's an instant Christmas favorite and its problems are surprisingly small. Its references and Easter eggs are clever, and I'm glad that they stayed faithful to the source material. I'm giving the 2004 Polar Express a good old 9 out of 10. Happy holidays, everyone.